A very good day to you. I am Jamie Kara, and we are here today at the residence of none other than the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Thailand to celebrate a very special day. The 5th of December marks and commemorates the National Day of the Kingdom of Thailand, and who better to discuss this with other than the Ambassador, the distinguished Ambassador himself, Mr. Po Hampo. Sir, hope you are doing good. First off, to start off this discussion, I would like to ask you about the relations between Sri Lanka and Thailand. Now, I think everybody already knows that we've had very healthy diplomatic relations for a long time. But Sri Lanka and Thailand have also a very close relationship based on Buddhist principles. So talk to me a little bit about, in terms of Buddhist principles and Buddhism as a whole, the historic relations between Thailand and Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for coming over to the residence of the Ambassador of Thailand. I welcome you here to our residence. You mentioned about our diplomatic relations. In 4 year time, we're going to celebrate 70th year anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic relation. We established our diplomatic relation in 1955. But actually, as you mentioned, our relation dates back centuries ago, almost a millennium, with, of course, Buddhism in general. There has been study in both Sri Lanka and Thailand about the trace and relations of Buddhism between our two nations. Archaeologically speaking, there have been traces of Ceylonese or Sri Lankan style, the moonstone, the tapestry stone that found in one of the provinces in Thailand as early as the 8th century. Yeah. And we have, in fact, the Buddhism in Siam in Thailand was called Lanka Wong. That is originated from Sri Lanka, from Lanka. But the most crucial point in our Buddhist relations came in about 270 years ago when Upalitero came from the Kingdom of Thailand, Ayutthaya, one of the former capitals of Thailand, that by the request of King of Lanka, to come to propagate, to revive Buddhism here, because the tradition of Buddhism has long gone almost at extinction. So back then, 270 years ago, the Thero from Thailand, from Siam back then, together with some disciples, came over here and ordained as many of 6,000 to 7,000 people. That is the revival of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Up until this day, we still have one of the sect in Sri Lanka, Nikaya, that's called Siam Nikai, together with Brahman Nikai and Amonpara Nikai, with some, expansion and also propagation of Buddhism from Myanmar and some. And also from Thailand. That's the most important. And still, Thai people still come to Sri Lanka to see the trace of that. Some of the temple, but Thammaram, Bupparam, some Thai people and Sri Lankan people still cherish that cooperation. Of course, the relations in historical term, in religious term, and also to people relations. Sri Lankan people regard Thai Buddhism as also one of the second source of revival of Buddhism here, and Thailand also share mutual respect to Sri Lankan Sangha, Sri Lankan monkhood in here. So I would say that you mentioned relation. I would say that there are no other two nations that have unique relations like Buddhism that bind our two countries together. But as ambassador here, what I would like to do even more is that based on our mutual treasures that we share, we move forward to other area, to mutual understanding, to mutual benefit. That's what I am here for. That's what I would like to do. But
Absolutely.
of course, we still cherish our special bonds together with Buddhism that you mentioned.
Absolutely. I think that's the end goal for any diplomatic or just relations between country
Right.
is to have a mutual benefit.
Right.
Now, speaking of Buddhism as something common that Sri Lanka and Thailand share, yet another thing that I think binds us two countries is also tourism. The tourist
Right.
sector, all of us know that Thailand has some of the most stunning tourist attractions. So talk to me a little bit about what opportunities in terms of the tourist sector, what opportunities do you think we might have in the future to develop and harness and use this valuable treasure of tourism?
Okay, thank you for your question. I think we, of course, when we talk about tourism, COVID-19 pandemic comes into the picture already. Tourism is also one of the main sector in both Thai and Sri Lankan economy. Talk about Sri Lankan economy, I think 4 million people, 4 million Sri Lankan are stakeholder in tourism business. And before COVID-19, about 10% of GDP revenue relied on tourism and all that. What in the long run, I think we have to take tourism as in Sri Lanka, if you mentioned what like to share or to learn from Thailand. In Thailand, we began our earnest tourism promotion in 1987 with the Amazing Thailand Visit Year. And from then on in 1987, when a number of tourists still were still very small, up to now, just before the pandemic year, tourism became main revenue for Thailand. What we have done so far in the past, that Sri Lanka has to, you have diversified tourist destination. Sri Lanka has been known long time ago for surfing, but what I didn't know that, I didn't realize that you even have safari here in Yama province. And also for the seaside, you have blue whale watching. And also you have tea plantation, you have cool area. So Sri Lanka is also the all year round destination tourism as in Thailand. What we have to do, if I may humbly suggest, is that we have to promote the service industry in Thailand. We have to set the standard. Thailand has been benefited from tourism because we have good infrastructure. We have had new airport, hotel business, training. We have very well organized tour operator. That something that, of course, Sri Lanka has also been done that in the past. For example, jet wing business, you are very keen on Scandinavian tourism and all that. But of course, the facility and infrastructure for tourism must be expanded. For example, take an example of myself. It took me about 4.5 hours to Anuradhapura with all the roads in that. In the traffic is quite heavy. I think this kind of infrastructure takes some time, but it will benefit. Take a look at Galle city. You have expressway to Galle and Pamptota. Galle is the city, is one of the two cities that have been to Anuradhapura and Galle. I think it's easier to reach Galle, and when once reach Galle, one thing is a kind of different perspective. You have old town, you have seaside and town. So as a tourist, if I put myself as a tourist, I go to a mountain or British area in Anuradhapura, and in the time I go to Galle. It means that you have very rich resources already that Thailand and Sri Lanka share. What we need to do more for you, if you ask my humble opinion, is that infrastructure, training in personnel, service industry, That we will come after. Maybe we can talk about it later in your later segment of question.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing your personal opinions as well, because I think it was really insightful.
Right.
And it's something that a lot of people out there could utilize to develop Sri Lanka as well and develop both our countries in the future. But speaking of future, you did talk about COVID-19 for a second now. It's not a surprise. COVID-19 has been so terrible on a domestic level, on a national level, on a global level. And I think one of the industries that took a hard impact or took a really tough impact on is the tourism industry. According to you and according to Thailand policies and principles, what do you think are a few things that we could do in the future to recover in terms of the tourist industry and to, get back to where we were pre-COVID in a post-COVID world?
Right. Thank you. But I think with the pandemic, everybody wants to travel now. If you have a chance, talking about Thailand policy in terms of tourism post-pandemic, of course, bit by bit we have a clear policy. We began in Thailand, maybe in Sri Lanka too. You've done that to a kind of bubble travel. Okay, we designated certain provinces like Phuket or Bangkok as a bubble destination, and we test its a bit effectiveness, and also we concerned with the health guideline. But post-pandemic, we will come up with 3 chapters of promotion of tourism in Thailand. The first chapter of tourism promotion in Thailand would involve the come to see 5 senses of Thai culture, for example, delicious food of Thailand, and you will feel the authenticity of Thai food, of Thailand, of Thai culture, the common destination, the common views that all tourists all over the world think about Thailand. You can come and feel all your 5 senses in Thailand. That's the first chapter. And then later, the Tourism Authority of Thailand promote in the segment as the one you love. We concentrate on the family, couple, friends that would like to have a specialized event. For example, honeymoon. You can get married in Thailand if you like. We promote that. We have all turnkey. We can have all the project done for you. Just take yourself and your guests in Thailand.
I think that's a dream for a lot of couples out there to have a destination wedding in Thailand.
Right. Destination wedding is becoming more and more popular. And then the third one, I think that's upcoming, that reflect the trend of the world, is the earth we care. We want to cater tourism for those who care about environment and nature. Like you, Jamie, you are millennial, you are young people. You have awareness of environment impact that you have done. So we try to cater that. We see the impact of what bad thing that we have done to the nature. We have seen that during the COVID period, some of the natural destination in Thailand have improved a lot. Now we learn that, okay, we have to limit number or keep season by season so that people can enjoy the revived nature of Thailand as much as we can. And after that, after the 3 chapters, the 3 themes, we also have a kind of catch the mode of the world, the new normalcy. We're going to promote the vacation station because now, as COVID-19, you realize that you can work anywhere you want with the Zoom and all that. So Thailand will promote a kind of workstation, remote working, to create environment. You can stay in, I don't know, in your case, in Old Town, the Phuket, tapping on your computers and all that. You can work and send pictures and all that. Of course, face-to-face communication is the best, but it's an option. Also, Thailand has long embraced the social media friends to promote tourism. In 1987, we relied on traditional PR marketing, but these days, we relied also on social media, word of mouth, and all trip and all that. The tourism authority of Thailand has done in all areas. Now we rely on influencers like you. You may be influencer for Sri Lanka to Thailand. I know what I have described to you. You may take something and do what you can do for your tourism industry, because tourism industry in Sri Lanka, as I told you, the stakeholder, there are 4 million people and generate almost 10% of your GDP. With the pandemic is too bad, but something catching up. The number of visitors to Sri Lanka is
rising.
Right. And also between Thailand and Sri Lanka, the direct flight between our two capital, Colombo and Bangkok, are coming more and more. That will help tourism between our two countries also.
Absolutely. Sir, I've been talking to you for a couple minutes now, and we were having a discussion before we actually started this interview. And one thing I'm starting to notice is that I absolutely love how you think, right? So even in terms of tourism, you don't look at it just in one perspective, but you look at it in, the earth, how we can care for the earth, but also promote tourism. But you're also incorporating all of these modern techniques like social media into tourism, which I think is something that a lot of other nations out there can definitely learn from. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And my next question to you, in terms of cooperation between Sri Lanka and Thailand, we've had a very healthy relationship, like I spoke to you about earlier on. My question to you is, on a personal note, sir, what do you think are the levels or the fields in which our cooperation could be amplified between Sri Lanka and Thailand?
I think would be people to people, that there's already the connectivity. I would say in terms of regional perspective, connectivity would be one of the themes that we could take, because Thailand also is a hub for regional. We can be a kind of stepping stone to our neighboring country, and Sri Lanka is located in very good strategic maritime location. You have Hambantota port, you have Colombo port, you have other port in the other part of the ocean, the Indian Ocean also. That is one of the things, and you are situated in the region with some neighboring countries or that. At present, we have agreement between Hambantota port and one of Thailand ports, Ranao port already, for shipping industry. And formerly, Thailand was also the hub of traveling for Sri Lanka. But with the pandemic, I hope things keep up. I would say that the coastal line, India, Sri Lanka, and then to Thailand, the line of shipment, that we have to exploit more. That's one of the things that I would like to mention when mentioning this. Sri Lanka this year hosts BIMSTEC, Bay of Bengal, multi-sectoral cooperation, technical cooperation, which include India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, and also Thailand. And Thailand will assume chairmanship next year. The theme of the meeting next year would be bio-circular green economy, renewable energy and all that, which also Sri Lanka is very keen on, and also the connectivity that I mentioned. So to answer your question, in which area of cooperation, in the macro perspective way, in a bigger picture, would be the connectivity between the two countries, which also benefit the regions as a whole too. But on a personal level, if you ask that, I would like to kind of maybe education of the young people to promote. Of course, Thailand has Asian Institute of Technology. Older generation of Sri Lankan also educated from that. Even though it's Institute of Technology, but now it is also management, also administration and all that. We can learn. Young people can learn instead of going to European country or North American country. Thailand could be a country of choice. That I'd like to promote education opportunity in Thailand for young Sri Lankans too.
I think that's actually amazing, because I've heard a lot of foreign policy strategies between countries, but education, promotion of education is not something that I've heard about between Asian countries. But it's definitely something, like you said, like you very rightly said, it's something that we need to start promoting, because I do know a lot of Sri Lankans and a lot of Thai students go to Europe, go to America, and why do we need that when we could, you know, do that in Asia as well? So thank you for sharing that, sir. And in terms of that, we touched on this earlier on, but I want a bit of a deeper insight, if you're okay with that. And that's with regards to you know, tourist attractions, right? I spoke to you earlier on how I personally have been to Thailand, and I absolutely loved Phuket, and I absolutely loved Bangkok as well. In terms of, you spoke of how Thailand has a very diversified tourist economy, right? And that is something that Sri Lanka could learn from and gain some knowledge from. What are the other things that you think that Sri Lanka can learn from in terms of the Thailand tourist industry, which is A-grade around the world?
I think it's organization, the network, the marketing strategy in the long run that one need to. We have, of course, Thailand and Sri Lanka both have assets in tourist attraction, but if I may say, Thailand has a longer tradition and longer experience in management of tourism industry. We have tour operator, we have facilities that all provide. We have hotel industry, we have promotion, and we have tourism authority of Thailand with offices all around the world, with specialized in certain segment of market. Like I mentioned to you, we want to capture millenniums, we want to capture long stayer, and also one of the example that I did not give you just yet, maybe another sample of the same thing that Thailand has done so far. It's a kind of the year of the home of senior people. European people who retire, they would love to retire in Thailand, because if, for example, they may pay a lot more medical service in their own country. With the social media, younger children in the Northern European country, we can Skype, can call their parents while they're at home care in Thailand. Which of course, Thai people, younger people, with respect, they care very well for the older generation. This kind of business also is a longer run. It's not a kind of tourism as such, but we care for senior citizens in Thailand, in the northern part of Thailand, in the seaside coast of Thailand. And in the end, the cost of staying in Thailand in the long run may be less expensive than European country. That's what something that Sri Lanka could have, because a lot of people love Sri Lanka and want to stay here.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a very unique investment strategy. I would call it investment for sure, because, you know, it's a lot of revenue that's coming into the country when all of these senior citizens decide to, you know, spend the latter part of their life in the country as well. So it's definitely an investment. And thank you so much for sharing it with Sri Lanka. That is definitely a policy or a strategy that can be adopted here to improve our economy and improve our revenue as well. Now moving on, we were talking about, you know, you're quite new to Sri Lanka. You've only been here for 6 months, Your Honor. But one thing I do want to I want you to talk to me about is your tenure here in Sri Lanka. How do you like Sri Lanka so far? Just your most honest opinion. What do you think of Sri Lanka as a person?
I love Sri Lanka. I mean, as I told you, I have been posted as a junior officer or as officer in some other country. But what I find most interesting here and rewarding and spiritually is that Sri Lankan people respect, first of all, other people, hospitality. Yeah. When you go to other country in Western country, you want to have that personal touch, personal regard. That's what I find like a homecoming to me. It's a kind of homecoming, and even though I have been here for only 6 months, I find Sri Lankan people hospitable, welcoming, and friendly. And it's that we are Asian, we can talk to, we have shared heritage, we have many things in common. Even some kind of fruit, Thai fruit and Sri Lankan fruits are quite the same.
Tropical fruits.
Right. Tropical fruit and all of that. So I look forward to spending my good time here and trying to promote relations between our two countries. Once you feel happy in any environment, you are ready to work. You are happy to work. That was I mean, and I think I'm lucky to be here.
Oh, I think we're lucky to definitely have you here with us in
you.
Sri Lanka and here with our organization as well. Apart from that, I want to say this interview started off as a very diplomatic one,
Yes.
but you've shared with us a lot of personal messages that I'm sure is going to motivate everybody that's watching this and everybody that's listening to this as well. My final question to you,
Right.
and you can go after that. Final question is with regards to trade. Now, I think in the 21st century, something that we can't do without is a neoliberal economy. You know, it is in a post-pandemic world, all our trade relations need to be as transparent and as open as possible. So talk to me a little bit about what you think Sri Lanka and Thailand can do to promote and improve its trade relations.
Okay, talking about trade, of course, we go back to also the pandemic spark. But anyway, Thailand and Sri Lanka had been trade partners for quite some time, and I may say that the trade volume is in Thailand's favor for some time always in Thailand, but we exchange goods and all that. We have a framework between our two countries to promote the trade between the two countries. At this juncture, we have both Sri Lanka and Thailand have memorandum of understanding of strategic economic partnership. We identify 10 areas of priorities of cooperation between our two countries, ranging from infrastructure, agro-industry, from packaging, tourism also that I mentioned, and up to IT sectoral promotion for both countries. But in the end, trade is not a one way, it's a mutual. So we have to identify the area of interest that Sri Lanka is happy to do, and Thailand is a kind of win-win situation. Right now, our trade volume is less than $500 million. Yeah, we want to promote more, and the trade in between Sri Lanka, so James Stone. We have raw gemstone from Sri Lanka, and to a lot of Thai traders, a lot of Thai people love gemstone Sri Lanka. If you have resources, and you buy parts from Thailand, we are doing business on that. But post-pandemic, what we have to do more, and we know that Sri Lanka is in need of foreign direct investment to bring about the US dollar to the much needed in the country. And Thailand company that have been present here already. Talk about inland fishery, we have Lotus Aquaculture, which is Sri Lankan and Thai company, and so cement industry. And so we have one of the project that's going on, is not finalized yet, when the sugar cane industry, which would bring, if approved, if it's finalized, it's still in the process, bring about 400 US million million US dollar the direct investment from Thailand, the sugar industry.
That's good to know. I just want to know, do you think that the policies that are there in Sri Lanka are favorable for FDIs and foreign direct investments? Do you think we need to improve in terms of policies to encourage foreign direct investment?
I wouldn't dare telling you that because it's also the policy. But I think the ease of doing business of each country, the ease of doing business is not the Thailand as an international rate and all that. But there is a positive side. I have been following the budget bill deliberations, all that. There's been a lot of positive outcome, positive long-term policy that's going to induce. Of course, we talk about foreign investment. You have a international port, city of Colombo. There's been also approach from the Sri Lankan side for the medical tourism, medical hub from the Thai side, which is one of the main sector of the international port city of Colombo, would be the medical hub area and all that, the infrastructure. Thailand is keen, is very, we have a lot of resources in terms of medical tourism, medical hub, and medical experts and all that. We have main hospital. So there has been approach to that medical sector from Thailand to also invest in that. There are things that could be not overnight, of course. It would be in the long run. But as you said, the favorable situation, long-term policy ease of doing business will help not only Sri Lanka and also Thailand. So Thailand also.
Oh, absolutely. This interview, I think me as a person, I learned so much about Thailand, about the relations, and I'm sure everybody listening in, everybody watching this would have gained so much insight, so much knowledge about Sri Lanka-Thailand relations, and for that, I am so grateful to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy person. Thank you for dedicating this time for us. It is such a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, the pleasure is also mine. I share your feeling, and thank you very much for your exaggerated compliments.
They're very true. I can tell you that they're 100% true.
Okay. And if anything we can do in the future, I would be delighted to.
Oh, the delight is all ours. Thank you so much. So have a good day ahead.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you. Thank you.